Well, welcome, Lisa. Thank you for spending some time with me this morning, your time in Brisbane, and this evening for me in Atlanta, USA, to talk about your identity and talents, purpose. So that's going to be the focus of today. I'll concentrate also on our business DNA discovery instrument, which I know that you've been using for the last 5 or 6 years in Australia mainly, yes. Which is fantastic. And we really appreciate you doing that, working with Carol Pocklington. So maybe, Lisa, if we just start out, if you just tell me a little bit about your career journey and how you got to this place of being a business consultant, coach, trainer, would be great to start with.
Well, I am actually a trained occupational therapist. I've got my degree and I was working full-time as an occupational therapist, specialising in hands. And I just found that there was this growing frustration and deep knowing that this wasn't really who I was and what I was created to do. So I did something drastic. I quit my well-paying job and went over to Europe to a Bible college because I just wanted to really quieten all the external voices in my world and everyone's opinions, and just really spend time with the one who knew me best and who created me, so which is God. So when I was over there, and it would have been halfway through Bible college, that I just all of a sudden just knew I was meant to run women's retreats, and that there was such an element of identity for women and also connecting with God. And so then began the big journey. And when I came home, and I then picked up a job as an occupational therapist still, but I began really training myself. So that's when Carol Pocklington was already in my world, and I spoke to her about what I wanted to do, and that's when she linked me up with DNA behaviour, and I trained and became a behavioural analyst, but it was still another 7 years before I really stepped into running the women's retreats and using the DNA profiles and growing that way. So I guess that's a little snapshot of my journey.
So when you were a occupational therapist, was there something that happened when you were doing it? What left you unfulfilled?
Well, it wasn't until I had done. So because I knew Carol and she was in my world as a dear friend, and one day she gave me this opportunity to do the DNA profile just so I could get to know myself. And I remember reading this profile going, well, that's not me really, because that's not what my world is. Because in OT, it's all about like you have to follow procedures and policies, and there's not a lot of room to be creative. And my profile came out extremely creative and very risk-taking. And I guess through my time as an occupational therapist, I actually took a sabbatical, and I just went over to India and lived with a couple over there who were Indian, and they worked in like the villages. And so I went out with them, and long story short, I ended up creating an orphanage with them and doing lots of fundraising and flying back and forwards between Australia and India. And I found that I was truly alive in that. And so as I was doing that, my desire for OT and what I did there really diminished. And so I could tell there was this stirring and this unsettling happening. So I would say it was a long process, but the DNA profiling and then just doing time in India and seeing that I just want to do more.
Yeah, I had a pretty similar journey. I don't know whether Carol ever said I was an accountant once upon a time.
No.
And I was like a caged tiger. I was pretty good at it.
Yeah,
probably still am in some people's thinking, but I was like a caged tiger, and I knew, like you did, that there was more to be done out there in the world,
Yes.
and I had to break free in some way. And it is quite it's quite a process to do that. It takes an extreme amount of courage
Yeah.
to do what you did. So yeah, I could see being tied up in processes, having to follow the steps, working for someone else in doing that, and you couldn't unlock your creative spirit.
No, definitely not.
But is there something deeper as well, Lisa, there for you in what you're doing? You know, when you throw your legs out of bed each day, is there something that's a bit deeper?
Yeah, I guess for me, because my world is God, you know, like I love him and I love what he's doing in the world. And for me, I have this mandate for women to be fully alive and fully connected in who they are, who God's created them to be. I want to see them confident, because I really believe that when women are truly who they're meant to be, their families change, their communities change, you know, like you just see lives really impacted because of the women, because I think women are they really do dictate a lot of the atmosphere in homes and in workplaces. And yeah, so I guess there is that underlying drive there, which has really come out in the women's retreats that I run, and I do mentoring, and yeah.
So you would put it down like helping women become more self-empowered, living more of who they are.
And I find a lot of women are really not seen, or they haven't even seen themselves. So yeah, it's definitely that.
Helping them step out to have a bigger voice.
Yes.
And
even its worth.
Yeah, and self-worth.
Yeah.
And if you helped people go from being, you know, at home, for example, to into the workforce, or staying in the workforce even though they've got kids, because that's always a difficult struggle for a woman once you have children, you know, what to do next and how do you do it?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, so we've been running retreats for almost 5 years now, and I can't even think how many women I have seen, but I've definitely seen women who have quit their jobs and done the drastic thing and really chased after the thing that God has placed on their hearts. I've seen women go from hairdressers to now working in Mexico and, you know, helping at the border of and the refugees, and yeah, just some phenomenal things that it has always been there for the women, but it's just giving them permission to stop and look at it, to realize just what's in them, and to put enough value on themselves to go for it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So what do you see as your like standout talent?
That's a good question. Oh, I know that just innately I can't help but inspire people, and especially when I get that one-on-one with them, and when I've got the DNA profile with me on who they are, it just something seems to unlock in the woman. And I don't know, I would say my talent is just seeing people.
And do you think that you inspire them because of the courage you had to break free? Is that what inspires them? They can see that Lisa is in this sort of nice, cozy, steady career. Looks like, you know, the world was your oyster, and suddenly you drop it all and go and do something very different. Is that what you think?
Yeah, I think there's definitely that. I've had lots of women say, I want to live like you. I really do feel fully alive. and that I live in freedom. And I guess that's because I know who I am, I know who God is, and it's so simple, but it brings, it brings that freedom.
And you mentioned it before, Lisa, a little bit earlier in the call, in the discussion, that your creativity got brought out when you saw your business DNA report. Tell us a little bit more about that. And how you found the report, not how you got to the process, because we know that from Carol, but how you found business DNA and what it revealed about you.
Like I said, initially, I just thought that's not me because I'm not living it. But as I've grown, the more I look back at it, I'm like, that is so me. I am incredibly creative. And I guess it's understanding creativity in itself, because I was like, I can't paint. The typical what creativity is labeled as, but I have these ideas all the time, and that's where I've learned my creativity and to really give it space. And so I'll go away by myself and I'll take a big book, a fresh book with no lines on it, and I just start dreaming and putting down what I want. And it's really allowing myself to do that. And because of that, I've taken the retreats to Morocco and France, and I've hired private islands in the Philippines. And I will take those risks, but they're calculated risks. But I feel like I don't really have too many limitations on where I can take a rise, or even what we do as a family. Like, for example, we've just built a pool, and that's come from my idea. And the pool is actually 7.5 meters high off the top of our deck, and it looks out at this beautiful view. And we're trying to work out where to put the pool, and Matt's like wanting to put it up the back, very practical. And I said, no, I want a pool out here where I can see the view. This is where we do our living. How can we make that happen? Because that's where we need to put it. So it's just, and then obviously Matt, he's an engineer, structural engineer. So he worked out how to do that. So we now have this amazing pool that's totally out of the box, but it's suspended and looking out over the view.
That sounds absolutely amazing. So you're lucky that he's a structural engineer probably to do that.
Oh, totally lucky.
Yeah. But your creative vision has prevailed.
Yes.
Yeah, so Lisa, a lot of it for you is really been unleashing in a lot of ways your creativity and solving problems, bringing vision. Does that come into play with the work you do when you're mentoring somebody, coaching them, consulting with them?
Yeah, I guess it's just you can start to see when you sit with them, you can see different options, or you can just see things a little differently to the way they see it. So I just ask really gentle questions and prompt them to start looking a bit wider at how their life looks and the options that are available for them.
Do you feel like you have creativity where you would go and write a book yourself, or I think the typical thing that we always associate creativity with is painting and daydreaming and, or inventing something, but doesn't sound like that's come out necessarily for you. But do you feel like through writing?
Yeah, that's funny you say that. There's been a few people recently saying that about a book. And so, yeah, I'd say that will be on the cards at some stage. Yeah.
Or a movie. Videos, because there's lots of ways to bring out that creativity to help you with the empowering.
Well, I actually just before COVID, this is interesting. I really felt, because I can hear God's voice. I heard him say, "Come down to the beach with me," and so I said, "Okay." And I went down, and as soon as my foot hit the sand, I heard him say, "Create online retreat packages." And I said, whoa, and I could, and then I just had a download on how to do it and why. And so that women all around the world could access these videos and how to spend time with him, and how to really listen to what he has to say and drawing out who they are. And so I ended up creating these videos and these beautiful packages that we send out. And it's a really beautiful guided process, but they can go away and they can do it in their own home, or they can book a little place and do it by themselves. And so that I had that ready to go December 2019. And so then 2020 happened. And all of a sudden I had this product that women could use in their home, and they just sold. They kept me so busy, but they also floated me through something that really could have taken a rise down. Like, I had to cancel 2 Italian retreats, a Mexico retreat, and it was a bit chaotic, but that kept a rise floating.
Yeah, that's fantastic that you had that idea and the foresight to do it, to build the program when you did. But what do you think, Lisa, is the sort of the magic in the programs that you deliver? What keeps people coming back, or coming back to do more of them, or to actually come in the first place? There's something that is that secret sauce or magic in what you're doing.
Honestly, it's God. That's the secret sauce. So I've learned over time that initially when I first started the retreats, I jam-packed it full of, like courses and whatnot, and all these one-on-ones with different professionals. And I just saw the women leaving exhausted, and I was like, that's not right. It needs tweaking. And so now we create a place where it's safe. I think safe, a place where women can come, feel safe, and then they can start to take those masks off. And I've found as they've taken the masks off, they actually go back to who they truly are. I see women like yahooing and having a great time, and they're like, I have not laughed like this for years. I didn't even know I was still fun. And I think because with that safety and with God meeting them exactly where they're at, and there's just so many key elements, but it's really, they feel seen and loved, and they get back to the core of who they are.
And is that happening because they're sharing with each other in this safe environment, or is it that they get space to go for a walk by themselves and meditate?
Yeah. I think it's both. And that's what I've loved about the DNA profile, because we actually have a heads up as to what to expect when these particular group of women come on each retreat's so different. So we have their profiles, and I'm like, okay, we've got a lot of reserved people. So the first night's going to be a little awkward. So we'll have conversation starters, and, so I've found that to be so key in that. But what we do, we just create this space so that if you want to chat with people and you're really engaging, then you've got space to do that. But if you're reserved, there's a lot of space. We create lots of different areas for you just to be still and be alone. So, and we've developed that over time.
Yeah, so it's customizing the experience for each person.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you might have to do the opposite with the more outgoing people, and getting them to quieten it down a little bit and quieten themselves down, and
they are such late nights.
Yeah.
With our chatters, yeah, that's right.
And is the in your business DNA style, you've got quite a strong risk-taking trait as well. Is that coming out from just being the business venturer to put these events together and take the financial risk, or are you doing something else where you're taking risks as well?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it plays out in the business and where I take it. But I guess just personally, who I am, I do risk-taking. I'll just, 1 week I'll just be on a plane heading to another country because I heard God say to do that, and then off I'll go. Like, I've I went to India and didn't have any contacts, but ended up having contacts and whatnot. So it does play out in my personal life as well, which my husband's learnt to just release me and trust me.
So that's the intuitive side of you coming out, or the instinctive side of you comes out.
That's right. Yeah, definitely. So that and risk taking really enjoy each other. They partner well together.
Yeah, they do. And if you can got the freedom to go and do that and comfortable with it, it's fantastic.
It's very fun.
And are you getting any ideas or inspirations from other people, or is it just completely God speaking in into your life, and bang, it happens, and then you take action?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. And I think I've learned over time, because for a while I had the wrong people in my world, and people with agendas, and that were just really not kind. And I couldn't see it because I'm a very trusting person. And so they were in my world, and that was very confusing. And it drowned God's voice out, drowned my instinct out, because I listened to them more. And then as I untangled out of that, I was like, I will never again allow someone to speak strong, like have a stronger voice in my world than God's. So while I will respect people's opinions, or I'll listen to their advice, I will always take it to God and let his voice be the loudest.
Yeah, I think that's just, you've got clarity of who you are, and you've got to have the courage to shut out the noise.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's not easy to do that.
No, it's not.
and I imagine you're teaching others to do the same thing.
Yes, that is a big one. I think that's really important.
So if we sort of looked at your identity and how you're seen in the world, and what your greatest impact is, what would you say that is? Or what's your aspiration of how the world will see Lisa Bruton?
Oh, that is such a big question, but a good one. Honestly, I just want to be a woman known for loving God, walking as he's created me to walk, no matter what, and just loving well, loving my family well, loving the people in my world well. That's honestly my aspirations.
But if we pin that down and sort of tagged it a bit more, do you see it as, a self-empower of women, a women's business leader, or a women's life leader?
I love that. I would say a woman who wakes people up.
Okay, see, there we go. Now, do you think you could put that in your LinkedIn profile or your Instagram account?
I've never thought of it like that. You've actually drawn something out of me that I just didn't even know. Yeah, I really like that. I'm going to be writing.
That's why we're talking today, Lisa, because see, this is where my gift, believe it or not, comes into play.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah, so waking people up, getting them to live who they are and be empowered to go and do it.
Yes.
And you see, now you've potentially got a title for your book.
Love it.
Something for the program for Instagram.
Yes. And I've been getting more invitations to speak at conferences and different places. So that will be really helpful. Because
I think a lot of this is you now know what your talents are. I think you know why you get out of bed every day. You know who's powering you, being God. But then piecing all that together and saying, how's the world going to see me, is important, so that you place yourself in that position and you manifest it, and you bring everything in to your world that's going to that can possibly come in that reflects that.
Wow.
Because you've got to think of yourself as that if you're going to be that. And that's
Yeah,
and that's what part of this is. And as part of defining your identity is then that you will live that out. And as you start making decisions, Lisa, you'll say, okay, is that my identity?
That's
and
good.
does that fit with my identity? And that'll also be part of you deciding who's in your life and who's not in your life, who gets to speak into your life. So this is why this is so important. And then it gets down to what changes are you going to make?
Yes.
To be that. To be that person who wakes others up. What changes are you going to make? And you don't have to be able to answer that right now, but that's something for you to be thinking about.
Yeah, that's good. I will be writing that question down as well.
But I wouldn't lose your creativity, risk-taking, and instinctive nature. I think that's what makes things work for you.
Yeah. Yes, I think you're right.
So as we wrap this up, have you got a tip for others, or a book, or a movie, or anything you want to suggest that others go and read, listen to, watch, do?
Well, I've got this thing that I do every Monday on Instagram. It's just a Monday encouragement, and they're just little tips or practical tips that I have found that helps wake you up.
Okay, fantastic. All right. So, and then for everybody else listening, if you want to learn more about yourself like Lisa has, get confident and inspired in yourself, you can go to businessdna.com and take a profile there and start the journey of discovery. And we'll look forward to connecting soon. So, Lisa, thank you for doing this with me.
Thank you. It's been amazing.